Previously on the greatest robberies in history. In less than 30 minutes, a crew got away with the greatest U.S. cash heist ever of $18.9 million. The bank heist crew consisted of just 6 men, and their target was the Dunbar Armored Facility. The Dunbar Armored heist was the perfect heist in many ways. No clues, no leads, the cleanest getaway with a gigantic fortune. The case had basically gone freezing cold if it wasn't for one man's tiny misstep. What could have been the perfect crime and a legend for centuries to come, poof. To find out what happened, check out our previous episode by clicking the link in the description box below. So, who stole the priceless paintings in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum? It is the 28th of March, 1990. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, located in Boston, Massachusetts, has just discovered the theft of 13 of its most prominent and precious works of art. Following the robbery, a gigantic investigation is launched, striving to discover who it was that stole the art. The mob, wannabe rock stars, conspiracy – there's a lot to unpack here. So let's uncover the details together on this week's episode of the greatest robberies in history. And before we continue, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode of the greatest robberies in history. Now, let's get to the 4th episode. So, what really happened on that St. Patrick's Day in 1990? Well, let's start with the facilities' guards and security system. Since this was a museum and not a high-security, high-stakes vault, there were just some motion detectors and a few guards around, making sure that no one got up to any hijinks. There were, of course, precious paintings in the museum, but who would suspect someone to steal them? There was seemingly no real reason for caution. The 2 guards were Rick Abbott and Randy Heston. Both in their mid-20s, both were fans of music. Heston was a student at the New England Conservatory, and Abbott played in a rock band. And neither of them had undergone any specific or formal security training. Their shift began at 11:30 p.m., and they started their rounds, with Abbott heading out on first patrol. There were no security cameras. So far, the only thing of note was an alarm going off on the 4th floor. But Abbott checked it out and found nothing suspicious. Heston took over the patrol around 1 a.m., and just over 20 minutes later, at 1:24, the doorbell rang. As Heston headed over to check it out, he discovered 2 police officers on the other side of the glass, letting him know that there was a disturbance in the courtyard, that they were called, and they were asking to be let in. The police officers were let in, and within minutes, both Heston and Abbott, the sole security guards in the whole museum, were cuffed to pipes in the basement, their mouths and heads duct-taped, unable to move. As it turned out, the police officers were not real officers at all, and they had just gotten an all-access pass to the museum. For the next 81 minutes, the pair picked, ransacked, and stole various pieces of priceless art from the galleries, making a few stops at key locations, namely checking on the guards in the basement, then grabbing the security camera footage from the director's office for the few cameras there were. At 2:45 a.m., the thieves left and disappeared, never to be seen again. The following morning, as the morning shift guards showed up and were unable to find the pair they were supposed to replace, Abbott and Heston were discovered tied up in the basement. Once the real police were called over, the FBI were promptly involved due to the monetary and cultural significance of the pieces stolen. And of course, one of the very first questions asked was, why did the thieves choose the pieces they chose to take? This was not, after all, a random breaking and entering crime. There were 13 pieces of art stolen over 2 separate floors, 3 galleries, and a period of 81 minutes total. The glass panels were smashed, frames torn and battered, and paintings sliced sloppily. The thieves knew what they wanted, but not how to take it, and seemingly not that they had quite significantly damaged the paintings in the process of stealing them. Of note was a small Manet painting taken from a downstairs gallery. This was particularly remarkable since neither of the thieves had ever entered that room according to the motion sensor records. The last person to visit the room was none other than Abbott as he worked through his shift. The FBI began suspecting that this could have been an inside job, that one or more of the guards at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum had been behind the theft. Now, before we get into the details of why this was suspected and more, take a second to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends so they too can join the journey of the greatest robberies in history. So, on to the theory that this was potentially an inside job. Why? Well, there were several key clues that truly hinted at a conspiracy. The thieves knew too much about the ins and outs of the museum security. There was a secret service door left open in one of the galleries, and they knew exactly where to find the security camera's tapes in order to steal them on their way out. And there was that inconsistency with the motion detector records in the Manet painting. Plus, on top of everything else, it was strictly against protocol to let anyone in through the side entrance of the museum. So why did the duo disguising themselves as police officers seem to know about this? Of course, following all of these clues and revelations, fingers started pointing at Richard Abbott. The suspicion was that he let the thieves in, regardless of their police disguise. However, there was never enough evidence, circumstantial or not. 25 years later, FBI released camera footage showing Abbott breaking the side door entrance rule the night before the incident. But this was once again inconclusive. A Netflix documentary and a separate Netflix show called This Is a Robbery mostly paints Abbott as a harmless wannabe rock star who was not entirely motivated to do his job and had in fact handed in his 2 weeks' notice at the museum to focus on his music career instead. Furthermore, the documentary had already been looking into a potential organized crime connection to the heist from the get-go, regardless of Abbott's involvement. The authorities moved on to carry out sting operations, interrogations, searching informants, and more official methods that were quite far beyond a simple security guard wanting to rock out. "I was just this hippie guy who wasn't hurting anything, wasn't on anybody's radar," Abbott told NPR in 2015. "And the next day I was on everybody's radar for the largest art heist in history." Following the investigation and currently, there are two leading theories concerning who had carried out the robbery as well as its connection. Both have a connection to the Boston Mafia, hence the intricacies and extensive resources put in the investigation, as well as all the more reason to clear Richard Abbott's name as a suspect. The first theory is the Bobby Donati one. First suggested by art thief Miles Connor, this theory names Bobby Donati, a gangster and active member of the Boston Mafia at the time of the heist, as the mastermind behind it. It further stipulates that the motivation behind the robbery was to leverage the stolen goods for the release of the mob's leader, Vincent M. Ferrara, from prison. Surrounding the timeline of the heist was a significant inner conflict within the Boston Mafia, and Donati wanted to leverage Ferrara's release in order to receive some protection and avoid his own death. However, almost inevitably, Donati was murdered within a year of the robbery, further suggesting him as a culprit. If this theory is the correct one, then any plans to sell, pawn, or otherwise move the artwork died alongside Donati, and the pieces were most likely redistributed between the other members of the Mafia or the rival faction responsible for Donati's murder. The other possible outcome is the Carmelo Merlino theory, which is also outlined by the Netflix show This Is a Robbery. Following the theft of the artwork, the theory is that it ended up with another faction of the Boston Mafia, run by Carmelo Merlino in Dorchester. Essentially, Robert Guarente, a member of the Merlino faction, had the paintings. His widow Elena talked to the FBI, stating that during his battle with cancer in 2004, he entrusted the paintings to one Robert John Teal, a fellow Merlino gang member based out of Connecticut. This, however, hasn't been and most likely won't be leading anywhere. Gentile and his lawyer deny having the paintings or knowing their whereabouts, and the most significant piece of information he was able to provide was a polygraph test result. He was shown to be lying when responding to the question of whether or not he knew anything about the paintings or their theft. A deal for immunity or a reduced sentence in exchange for any information on the paintings led to Zip from Gentile. A similar deal was struck up by the FBI with Merlino, which stipulated his release from prison and immunity in exchange for information, and led to nothing, and Merlino died in that same prison in 2005. Here's a list of some of the stolen art. 1. The Concert by Johannes Vermeer. Painted in 1664, the painting is valued at over $200 million. 2. A Lady and a Gentleman in Black by Rembrandt. Painter Rembrandt van Rijn, year 1633 and value priceless. 3. Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Painter Rembrandt van Rijn, year 1633, value $100 million. 4. Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, painted by Rembrandt van Rijn, year approximately 1633 and value once again priceless. 5. Landscape with Obelisk by painter Govert Flinck, painted in 1938, valued at $10 million or more. And 6. Chez Tortoni, painted by Edouard Manet, painted in 1875 and valued as priceless. Unfortunately, despite years of investigation and over 30,000 different leads, forensic follow-ups, interviews, interrogations, and more with hundreds of people involved on each and every side, there has been absolutely no information that has led authorities closer to the discovery of even one of the pieces. These investigations have led those involved across the US, Europe, Asia, and South America to no avail. Initially, the artwork stolen was valued at around $500 million. However, with the current state of the world economy and the art market, Sotheby's Senior Vice President Otto Naumann has said that the real estimate is probably, quote, at least $1 billion, adding that the Vermeer's concert alone is worth nearly $500 million on its own. Well folks, that's it for today's video. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and make sure to check out our other episodes on the greatest robberies in history in the description.